stripe. Sounds great.
Welcome in, everybody, to the NFL Week 11 preview show with Uncle Phil and Smooth Andy. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday evening. Hope you're doing well. Uncle Phil, Smooth Andy, how are you guys doing tonight?
Good. Look, excited about NFL. We've turned the corner. We're past the halfway point on the season, sliding into Week 11. I feel like, again, it's the time of year which typically works well for me. I know the teams. I know tendencies. I know their weaknesses. It's really hard to mask those. They run up against enough defenses to exploit those weaknesses. And the defenses have run up against enough different types of offenses at this point to show that they're weaknesses as well. So quarterbacks have played. You see those matchups. You're kind of getting down to quarterbacks that have played versus man versus zone and their strengths and what they play well against. So look, not a lot of secrets about this time. This time of year, a lot of it comes down to health, injuries, and then we start rotating into the teams that have said, we're out of it. Let's try to make this season end and kind of do that. So, look, I'm excited about it. This past week in NFL, went 11-4 for the week. Was a great week for me. Looking to continue that trend. Smooth Andy, you had a great week. The dogs finally came back for you. The dogs finally barked, and you were ready. You've been ready for a while to catch them for about 3 or 4 weeks, and you caught them. And where a lot of people were licking their wounds this weekend, you made the cash. Congratulations, man.
Well, thanks. But, I've had 3 really bad weeks when the dogs were not hitting, and then 1 good week now when they did. I've had a couple above average weeks and stuff. But yeah, this week was the first time I had a nice, I think it was 7-3-1 this week, which is good. But I still got some catching up to do with some of the other lopsided bad weeks for me. So I'm hoping this is, the beginning of a trend or something like that. We'll see.
Yeah, interesting enough for this year so far. Even though we've had some odd swings and the favorites have covered a lot the past few weeks, they're really kind of catching up because this year, really to start the year, underdogs had their way for quite a few weeks to start the season. If you look at the season in totality this year so far, favorites are up, but not as much as you would think. Favorites are up 68-64 for 52%, and under the overs are about the same. They're 75, 74, and 3 this year for 50%. So again, really close on those as far as how they match up. They went. That's wrong. It's 78-69. So they are up a little bit more than I would say. So a little bit more than you would think. 78-69. So favorites are. We still got a chance for some underdogs to. That number is going to be up a little bit, or that number is going to be a little bit more close to even. Vegas always kind of evens things out toward the end. And what we've seen over the first few weeks is that we typically see when favorites cover very heavy. This past week, the underdogs covered, went 11-3, as you know, and unders went 10-3 and 1 as well. Not typically something you play as far as totals, but I'm sure a lot of listeners do. And that's a really interesting thing because what we typically see when you see that big of a differential, you eventually see a snapback I wonder if we'll see the same thing this week of a snapback. But again, under still got some ways, some ground to cover on this one.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. When you look at teams this week, as we kind of get into it, one of the things that's super important that I thought was interesting, I kind of dug into quarterbacks that allow sacks and how detrimental sacks are to drives in general and to points. And just a quick NFL stat just from sacks this season. If a team allows at least one sack on a drive, they average about 1 point. But if a team gets no sacks on that drive, it's about 2.3 points. The percentage of TDs are about 7% with one sack and about 26% with no sacks. So offensive line, protection, quarterbacks who are not taking sacks become really, really important. I mean, you saw that break down this past weekend on Monday night. The Rams were favored. I thought the Rams would win. The Dolphins, of course, Tua didn't take that many sacks. Seems like every time I turned around, Stafford was taking a sack. Really big differential on that. Just a pretty big difference over the course of games. Something that I think that we can start looking at to start handicapping games. I know you use a differential. Your metrics are pretty firm and fast on that, but it's certainly something that I'll be paying attention to going forward as we go throughout the rest of the season. But man, let's get to it.
All right. We'll start with the Thursday night game. Washington Commanders 7-3 at Philadelphia Eagles 7-2. Washington coming off the loss to Pittsburgh 28-27, and Philadelphia coming off the win over Dallas 34-6.
Yeah, look, this is truly the battle for NFC East, right? I mean, Giants, Cowboys, I mean, they're done. We kind of talked about this before the season. This is kind of where we thought we'd be. Washington being a surprise team, but we kind of thought they would be a surprise team. Look, the weather on this one, again, we're kind of moving down the temperature. We're at 46 degrees at kickoff, 27% chance of rain, northeast wind 6 miles an hour. So really no real wind to speak of this week. Slight wind, temperatures are dropping. We'll see as we kind of get in November how that cranks up. Probably be more of a factor in December, but hopefully we can get some wind going here, get some real NFL football games. My guess on this one is I've got Philadelphia -3.5, and I've got a total of 47.
Okay, you said 47. It opened 49, and it's down to back up to 49. Some 48.5s hitting. You said Philadelphia -3.5. I said -3.5. It's opened -3.5, and it's still -3.5. So there you go. Good start.
Yeah. Look, I mean, sounds about right. As far as injuries, that always plays a part, especially on Thursday night. Cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, who Washington traded for, still going to be injured, not going to be playing this week. Good news is running back Brian Robinson, who's been suffering with a hamstring, he's going to be back this week for Washington. That'll make a difference for them. The downside to Washington right now, it's unfortunate, is that their top three tackles, that's Cornelius Lucas, Braden Coleman, and Andrew Wiley, are all questionable, where Philadelphia today activated Jordan Mailata from IR in advance for Thursday night's game. Philadelphia also wide receiver Devontae Smith, hamstring, limited practice day, but is expected to play. Looks like Philadelphia is starting to get healthy, particularly on that offensive line. Washington at the tackle position, really kind of a tough thing, especially we'll have to follow those up as far as a game time decision on that. exactly see how that works out. Again, you're our resident Commanders guy. What do you think about this team? What do you think about this game?
I've been wrong about Philadelphia. I mean, there are a couple teams that I keep seeing get priced in the market in a way that I didn't think I agreed with. One of which we'll get to later with the Jets. In fact, we'll get to that. But Philadelphia has been coming in at a higher power number than I expected all year. And after the first, say, 4 games, it looked like that was misplaced. But since then, they've been really on a roll. They've been doing really well. So, I think they are back. They seem to be back despite all the Sirianni hurt stuff. Washington, on the other hand, I think is they're stepping out of the abyss right now. And really, honestly, if they can make the playoffs at some point, and they seem to be on that path, that would be a triumph in itself. One draft class for Adam Peters, and it's been it's worked out very well so far. But I kind of think Philadelphia is the better team here, and I think 3.5 is about right. But we'll see. I'm not 100% a believer in Washington yet. I'm not sure. Like at the end of the year, whatever their winning percentage is, it's 7-3. That's 700. I don't think they'll be 700 at the end of the year, but I think they'll make the playoffs. So I think they can pull this off. But I think they're a better bet when they're at home against Philadelphia. Although Philadelphia fans travel really well, and Washington fans have been putting on paper bags over their head for 20 years, so it's possible they haven't quite gotten on the bandwagon yet. So we'll see. But I'm hopeful to pull off an upset for Washington, but at the same time, I think Philadelphia 3.5 is about the right number.
Yeah, you and I were all over this number. Certainly, that's Vegas' number as well. The public, as well as the sharps, have kind of done a push-pull, kept the line exactly at 3.5. I think everybody feels that's probably the best line. Really, the key for Philadelphia, to your point, is they are 6-0 with A.J. Brown the lineup. Really the key. Obviously, he's playing tomorrow night. Can they cover the 3.5 at home? Another thing for Philadelphia key, they are 13-1 when Jalen Hurts doesn't turn the ball over. Really, really makes a massive difference to them. Going a little deeper for this game, Washington's wins have come at the expense of the Giants, Cincinnati early on, Arizona, Cleveland, Carolina, Chicago. Washington's losses have come against Tampa Bay, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. Which group do you think Philadelphia fits in? The wins or the losses? It feels to me like they fit squarely in the loss category. But the question is, can they cover the 3.5? We'll have to see about that. Look, again, these tackle situations, wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, make sure that they're healthy, make sure they're playing. The tackle situations for Washington, I think that's the crux of these games, especially on Thursday night games. We'll see we have to go. But I think we're all over this game. I think we're looking at the right things in this game. I have a pretty good feeling of how I'm going to go on this game. But again, I'll have to wait and see how the injuries are. But I'd be shocked if I don't put a play out tomorrow night.
Okay. Next game is the first of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 1:00 games. We have 3 4:00 window games again this week, just like last week, which is kind of a little bit too lean. I kind of wish they had 4, maybe even 5. But we've got 8 1:00 window games. It's Green Bay 6-3 at Chicago 4-5. Green Bay coming off a bye, and Chicago coming off a loss to New England 19-3.
Yeah, really tough week for Chicago. Looks like it's getting tougher. Weather in this game is 56 degrees. Chicago, not bad. 16% chance of rain. Southwest winds 10 miles an hour. I'm in Chicago right now. Chicago's fantastic. Should be a good game. My guess on this one is Green Bay -3, and I've got a total of 45.
Okay, you said 45. It actually opened 41, and it's down to 40.5.
Okay.
So you might have an advantage there. Green Bay, you said 3. I said 5. It opened 5, and it's up to 6. So
it's up to 6.
big
Yeah,
number.
I can certainly see that. Look, Chicago hadn't scored a touchdown in 2 weeks. It's just been they could only put up 3 points against the lowly Patriots. So I mean, just kind of a disaster. Obviously, they just fired their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. That makes the second offensive coordinator fired this year, and Luke Getsy being number 1. The ironic thing is that Matt Eberflus, he's actually hired both those offensive coordinators and fired both, and obviously Luke Getsy almost gets the hat trick, and if he gets fired again from somebody else, he will, but gets fired again. So look, just a really rough time in Chicago. Caleb Williams has clearly regressed. He was bad to start the year. Then you saw the light coming on. You saw him going through his progressions, and now the offensive line gets bad. He's regressed. You just don't have a coaching staff that's really built to develop a rookie quarterback. Statistically, his stats are the exact same as Justin Fields. There's just not a dime's worth of difference between the two statistically. But I mean, this is really bad. Just quickly, some stats about Caleb Williams. Has a 39 QBR, 29th in NFL, worst completion percentage on throws 15 plus yards by any quarterback in any season over the past 15 years. He's off target on 23% of his passes, which is 34th in the NFL. 25 QBR off play action this season, 32nd in the NFL. A 9 QBR when he goes outside the pocket. His sacks, interceptions, and fumbles this year are 47. It's the most in the NFL. Really holds it. I mean, the worst combination you can have. Holds the ball too long with a bad offensive line. As far as him holding the ball, when he holds it for at least 5 seconds this season, when he's just in dropbacks, 36. His QBR is 36. I mean, it's just really, really bad. So, I mean, he's just, it's a tough deal. They've got a lot to clean up this year in Chicago. It won't be during the season. Chicago has the bad thing for them is that they played the easiest schedule up until this point. But from this point forward, they play the hardest schedule in the NFL. So, Chicago fans, it's going to be a rough year for you toward the end of the year. Hopefully, you get some reprieve and get an offensive coaching staff here who can develop Caleb Williams. I still have a lot of faith in him. I don't care what anybody says. I think he's there. You just got to have somebody who's going to develop him. And right now, he's just kind of scrambling and doing his own thing. And you've elevated Thomas Brown, who's the passing game coordinator, who was at Carolina last year, who was, Frank Reich made offensive coordinator or calling plays for Bryce Young for the very first time last year for 3 games, then took the duties back, and then Frank Reich got fired. Then Thomas Brown called the plays for the last 6 games last year, and of course that didn't go well either. So I just don't have a lot of faith in this, and here we are again. So tough times in Chicago for them. Tough matchup with Green Bay, and it's only going to get tougher. Any thoughts for you on this game before we flip on?
No, this seems about right. This number also. I'll be watching to see how the betting goes. It's never good when somebody fires coordinators and stuff in mid-season. It's always a sign of something falling apart. I'm not sure if anything can improve as a result of this, but we'll see. I would say that Caleb Williams is lucky not to be have Urban Meyer as his coach for his first year. At least he's got somebody moderately capable to be his head coach. So it's not as bad as it could be, but at the same time, you got to look for some growth later in the year. We'll see.
Yeah, I just don't know that I see it. I probably disagree with you about him. That Matt Eberflus is moderately capable. I don't think that. Maybe he's moderately capable about defense.
I was saying moderately capable when compared with Urban Meyer. That's what I was saying.
Low bar there.
Yeah.
But again, last year the defense seemed to elevate last year with the acquisition of Montez Sweat. Figuratively speaking, I don't see another Montez Sweat walking through that door. Nothing happened at the trade deadline this year for the Bears. I think they got rid of Khalil Herbert, went to Cincinnati, but that was it as far as releasing no acquisitions. They're just going to ride this one out, and man, just looks like a tough road to the finish for them. But moving on, man.
All right, next game. This is a really thrilling game. Cleveland 2-7 at New Orleans 3-7. Cleveland coming off a bye. New Orleans coming off a win over Atlanta 20-17.
Yeah, look, I mean, my thing about this one is that I'm most interested, if I can find something interesting about this game, again, is how long would the new coach bump last? With New Orleans promoting their special teams coach, this is, they got a bump last week. We kind of called it. We kind of thought this would potentially happen. But how long does that last? Will it last this week enough against Cleveland? I'm not real sure. Obviously, in the Dome, there's no weather to speak of. My guess in this one, I'm going to put New Orleans at a 2.5-point favorite, and I'll put a total at 39.
Okay. Total, you said 39, open 42.5. It's up to 44.5.
Okay.
You said New Orleans -2.5. I said -3. It opened 1.5, and it's down to 1. Wondering if maybe the Cleveland bye is playing into that or not. I'm not sure.
I think so. I think that probably people are saying that the bump is short-lived. The total looks really aggressively high to me. I mean, I'll have to look into it of why it would be that way, but be interesting. Obviously, you've got Jameis Winston coming home, essentially. This is what he played last year. Maybe there's some advantage there that Cleveland might have just because of Jameis, knowing the players, knowing that organization. But again, that one will probably be entertainment purposes only for me. We can move on.
All right. Same here.
Yeah.
Next one's LA Rams 4-5 at New England Patriots 3-7. Rams coming off a loss to Miami 23-15. The Patriots coming off a win over Chicago 19-3.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it feels like just a few weeks ago, I said, "Hey, buy a ticket on the LA Rams. I think they're a sneaky potential playoff team, and if they get in the playoffs, I think they can scare anybody." Well, they certainly didn't show that Monday night. They looked really overwhelmed. I feel like Miami's defense, especially the defensive line, just absolutely whipped the Rams' offensive line. I know they just got players back. I thought that would make them better. Unfortunately, it almost made them worse. And I understand there's some chemistry things there you got to work out, and those will eventually get better and hopefully do. But that looked bad on Monday night. It really did. I mean, that was a poor showing. Matthew Stafford looked bad. It's one of the first times that I thought Matthew Stafford looked old. He is the quarterback who scrambles the least. I just don't know if New England could get pressure on him to actually expose that. We'll see how it goes, but I really put this game as two teams going in opposite direction, and not the teams I thought would go in opposite direction. You feel like New England's kind of on the rise with Drake May. He's playing well. The Rams look like they've kind of gone backwards, but there's no question this is a talent and a roster, a big roster discrepancy between these two. But can the Rams play up to their abilities, which they didn't at home on Monday night, which I just will not understand. They were outcoached, outplayed. I've got this one. just on the weather, 58 degrees, 0 chance of rain, northwest winds, 8 miles per hour. I've got this one. I've got Rams 3.5, and I've got 47.
Okay. You said 47, open 43.5 up to 44.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly 44s. As for the line, you said 3.5 with the Rams. I said 2.5. It opened 4.5, and it's still at 4.5. Pardon me. That seems like a big number. I kind of ordinarily I'd like to look for a Rams bet just because they looked so bad last week. To your point, but this is a big number. I don't know if the Rams. I mean, theoretically, that means the Rams hosting New England would be a 10.5 point game, or if you prefer less than 3 points for a home field, then say maybe 8.5. That still seems high to me, but that's where I am.
Yeah, no doubt. Does seem high. I guess you just don't know about New England. Did New England play so well against Chicago, or is Chicago just a complete disaster right now? And I think could be a little bit of both. We'll see. Certainly, I think this game will tell us a lot about these teams. Do the Rams really want to continue playing this year? Do they want to fight for a playoff spot? Because this game's now or never for them. New England's gotten surprisingly frisky with Drake May at quarterback. Looks like he's doing well. He's playing well. Certainly, from inside the locker room, what I'm hearing is that he is showing some really good leadership, and that they feel pretty comfortable with him going forward right now. At least, I mean, obviously anything can change. There's only a few games under his belt, but they like what they're seeing at this point. So, let's move on, man.
Okay, this one's interesting. It's one of the 3 best games, along with Washington, Philadelphia, and Kansas City, Buffalo this week. I think this is right in there with those other 2 as the best games of the week. Baltimore 7-3 at Pittsburgh 7-2. Baltimore coming off the win over Cincinnati 35-34, and Pittsburgh coming off the win over Washington 28-27.
All right, I'm flipping around trying to find you. All right, I found you. This obviously the battle for the AFC North. Weather on this one's 56 degrees, mostly cloudy, southwest wind 6 miles an hour. This is probably my second best game. I think Washington, Philadelphia is third. Buffalo, Kansas City is number 1 to me. Is that how you'd rank them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Washington, Philadelphia are a little more suspect than Baltimore and Pittsburgh, although Pittsburgh is a little suspect, but we'll see. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think so too. But this is an AFC North battle. It should be just a good battle. I'm not sure how good the NFC East is right now. I've got this one, Pittsburgh 2.5, and I've got total at 45.5.
Okay. Total, you said 45.5, open 46. It's up to 48. You and I made the same mistake, apparently, in guessing that Pittsburgh would be a home favorite, and they are not. I'm not sure that I agree with this. I'm still a little shaky on Pittsburgh. I know they're 7-2, but I don't know. This feels weird. Baltimore -3 is the actual line, and open 3. It's still 3.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously that means Baltimore's a 9-point favorite at home. Seems like a lot of points, especially for a division team. Look, I do think that Baltimore is going to have some opportunities on the outsides of this Pittsburgh defense. I thought the opportunities were there for Jaden. I felt like he missed some of those against Pittsburgh. Maybe they're thinking that they won't. They felt like maybe that game was in their grasp at Washington a time or two, even with that awful fake punt that Pittsburgh did.
But I mean, in fairness, I mean, Cincinnati got beat by 1 point by Baltimore, and that wasn't exactly expected either, right? So, I mean, they both just barely survived. their games, right?
Well, they did. I would. I think Cincinnati's playing a lot better right now, and their defense is playing better. I feel like Washington, you know, was really charged right now. If you go back and look at their wins, even though one of those was Cincinnati, I just feel like Cincinnati's defense is playing a lot better now, and they're a different team than they were when they played Washington. Washington again is really beat up with their tackles. I think that's an issue for them right now as well. We'll see, but getting back to this game, should be an interesting game. Baltimore has a great offense. Lamar Jackson, the favorite again to become MVP. They played Jaden Daniels last week. It's kind of a warm up for Lamar. Jaden Daniels isn't quite there yet as a rookie. As Mike Tomlin said, Lamar Jackson is a award-winning MVP or multi-year award-winning MVP. So let's call him Mr. Jackson for right now, and certainly he's earned that title. We'll see. I understand why the total's gone up. Baltimore's back in. Their defense is bad. I think Lamar can take advantage of some things outside the numbers for Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh does have the number 2 scoring defense. They're 4th in defensive efficiency this season. And Pittsburgh's also a great second half team. I think that those things are really interesting to see. Some really interesting ways to play this game from a number standpoint. But back to our original quandary is that Baltimore on the favorite side of 3 points just seems like a lot, especially for a divisional game. Any final thoughts on that?
No, that's it. Just surprised to see Baltimore favored, let alone by 3. But
yeah, we'll
see. I'll take 3.5 if I can get it.
There you go.
Next game is Las Vegas, 2-7 at Miami, 3-6. Las Vegas coming off a bye. Miami coming off a win over the Rams, 23-15.
Yeah, again, I feel like that Miami certainly is playing its best ball. Their defense really surprised me on Monday night. That defensive line just flat got after them. Calais Campbell looked like a man against boys like he has for 17 straight years. Just incredible. The temperature on this one's 79, a measly 1% chance of rain, winds from the northeast at 13 miles an hour. I've got Miami favored, may not have them high enough, but I've got it 7.5, and I've got a total at 45.
Okay. You said 45, open 45.5. It's down to 44 now. You said 7.5. I said 5 for Miami. It opened 7. It's up to 7.5. So you're pretty much right on there.
Okay. Nailed it. That's good. All right. Well, good. I'm thinking right about this game. An injury that's cropped up. Miami offensive lineman Austin Jackson is out for the season. I mean, I don't think it's a massive loss. Tua gets rid of the ball pretty quick. If it was somebody who held the ball for a long time, I'd be more concerned. But I think this is, unfortunate injury, but I don't think one that will affect the game that much.
Yep, I agree. This is an odd game, but we'll see how Tua's comeback is going. That's a lot of points to cover, but they're at home, so good for them on that.
It looked like a team possessed, and the Raiders certainly look like a team that has dispossessed. They have completely just dispossessed themselves from reality. They are. It's a tough team to. If you're a Raiders fan, man, it's tough right now. Lots of changes in that building. It'd be interesting to see if Tom Brady has any influence in that. But I mean, a Tom Brady perspective, maybe ownership, getting a 10% ownership stake is tough in a lot of different teams, but just going from where he was at an elite organization and going to the Raiders is a little bit different. But I know he's part owner in a WNBA team out there as well. So probably a good fit for him. But it feels like there's just tons of work to do in Las Vegas, and I'm not even sure where you start.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they're coming off a bye. We'll see, I guess. Next game is Jacksonville 2-8 at Detroit 8-1. I have a bad feeling I'm going to end up on Jacksonville in this game. Jacksonville coming off a loss to Minnesota 12-7 with Mac Jones at quarterback. Detroit coming off a win over Houston 26-23.
Yeah, look, I mean, the way I've looked this game is the bad vibes and bad culture versus the good vibes and good culture. Jacksonville just seems kind of like a mess. Obviously, Detroit's going to be in a dome, so no weather. I've got a guess on this one. I've got Detroit favored by 10.5. And I put a total at 47. The big reason why Trevor Lawrence is out, Mac Jones is still starting.
Okay. You said 47. It opened 47.5. It's down to 46.5. So you just about nailed it.
Okay.
As for the line, you said 10.5 for Detroit. I said 12. It opened 12.5. It's up to 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why I said I think I'm going to end up with a Jacksonville bet, judging by the way things are looking. But
okay,
maybe I can get the hook.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of points. Look, I love watching Detroit, but that may be too many points for me to do that. But interesting. I mean, Jared Goff typically has, we talked about it before, he typically has one of these games where he throws multiple interceptions. It's usually against the Bears, but this week he fooled us, did against Houston. But the good news for Lions fans is he typically snaps back and comes back to normal after that. So I would expect him to have a good game after last week, and it'll be interesting to see how they do being back home again. So Detroit, this is their best start since 1954. Quietly, they had the best third down defense in the NFL. One thing be massively important. One of the reasons why they're not only winning but covering the spread in a lot of instances. Again, they're 40-16 against the spread under Dan Campbell. So they are a covering machine for the most part. Last week, not covering against Houston was an anomaly, to say the least.
Okay. Next up is Minnesota 7-2 at Tennessee 2-7. Minnesota coming off the win over Jacksonville 12-7. Tennessee coming off the loss to the Chargers 27-17.
Yeah, I mean, really the thing that draws me to this game, that makes me want to watch this game, besides the occasional wager, is look, I want to see if Sam Darnold can bounce back. I mean, the way he looked last game was just atrocious. I put it out on Twitter. It's like Jacksonville had 9 plays in Minnesota territory in the whole game and had 7 points. Minnesota had 53 plays in Jacksonville's territory and only could score 12 points. So really kind of an odd game. If you told me on my best bets on Sunday, I know you were sick about it as I was, because that was a bad loss for us. Look, sometimes the ball doesn't bounce the way it should, but in that game, the ball wasn't thrown like it should be. One note for Vikings fans, not really particular to this game, but just speaking of quarterbacks, that J.J. McCarthy ended up having a second surgery this week on his knee that he already had operated on. This one was to relieve some swelling. Not sure how that'll play out, but it's worth certainly keeping an eye on that as well. Do you have any? I've got this one at Minnesota minus 5.5. I've got a total of 45.
Wow. Okay. Your total is way high. You said 45. It opened 38.5. It's at 39.5 now.
Okay.
As for the line, you said -5.5 Minnesota. I said 7.5. It opened 6, and it's still 6.
Still 6. Okay. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think I shot a little high for a road favorite. I think being south of 7.5, 7, 6.5 is probably would have been a better guess on my part. That was not a very impressive performance by Minnesota this past week. So that's probably it. I just think I've kind of liked Tennessee all year. They seem to be fighting pretty hard. They just have that Achilles quarterback, so we'll see. But they're kind of one of those teams that seems to show up even though they're 2-7. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, we'll see. Look, I think Tennessee does some stuff. I just don't see them. You remember how last year we kept remarking how Arizona was very feisty because you saw some life because of Jonathan Gannon. You could see that. I don't necessarily see that with Tennessee this year. I thought I would see more of a pop from Brian Callahan, and as a new coach, I don't see it yet. It'll be interesting on that. I'm going to watch this game. I don't know that I'll bet it, but at least initially. But I may jump in live to it because I just want to see a first couple of series of Sam Darnold and see how comfortable he looks, this week, and see if there's any difference. I felt like the Vikings offense did what they're supposed to do, except when they got to the red zone. They were 0-5 last week in the red zone. Jacksonville 1 of 1 in their only opportunity. I feel like Minnesota's defense left a lot of gaps this past week for open throwers or for open balls to get to their wide receivers. And I just didn't see the same tenacity on the defense. So there's a lot of things I want to see about Minnesota this week. Hopefully last week was an aberration, and we'll see a different side of Minnesota this week.
Okay, last of the 1 o'clock games. Indianapolis 4-6 at the New York Jets 3-7. Indianapolis coming off a loss to Buffalo 30-20. The Jets coming off a loss to Arizona 31-6.
Yeah, I've got this one marked down as my corner TV game. I've got several games I want to put in the center, but this one's off to the side in the corner for me. I'll glance at it only if I have if everything else is just in a commercial for me. So the weather on this game is 61 degrees, 2% chance of rain. Northwest winds 9 miles per hour. Again, nothing significant there. I've got the Jets favored by 2.5 and a total at 43.
Okay, you said 43 on the total. It opened 44, still 44. You said 2.5 on the Jets. I went 6 just because I feel like they've been overvalued by Vegas all year. It seems like every time I'm always a couple points off on the Jets in the negative direction. But it did open 3 and it's up to 4. So we kind of surrounded it. But you're probably a little closer than I am on that.
Yeah, like you said, I think we surrounded it. I think it's a good way of looking at it. If we're on the Price is Right, I win just because I didn't go over. But I don't feel no solace in that getting close to this game, we're trying to even begin to understand the physics of betting Jets games. But to your point, I think the best thing that you can say is that they're typically overvalued. The interesting thing about the Colts, I think most people have talked about the Jets enough this year, so I'll focus strictly on Indy, is that I may have one derogatory thing to say about the Jets, so I'll phrase that. I do have that. But with Indy, Shane Steichen comes out Monday. Joe Flacco's our quarterback. We're going to continue on with him. Then comes out today and says, nope, Anthony Richardson is starting, and he's going to start for the rest of the season. You can certainly tell when owners get involved, but it does certainly cause some confusion in the locker room. Jim Irsay is kind of that guy. You certainly see that with Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland, how he forces Kevin Stefanski to start Deshaun Watson. You see the influence of Woody Johnson. You see Jerry Jones getting involved when he shouldn't. All these owners, you can see when that's happening. So we'll see if Anthony Richardson gets the bump or not. But they certainly do have to see who they have in Anthony Richardson. But again, the immediate flip, you got to question what the players in the locker room are thinking, because just 2 weeks ago, Shane Steichen comes out and says Joe Flacco gives us our best chance to make the playoffs, and now they're like, no, totally reverse course. We're starting Anthony Richardson. He's starting for the rest of the year, and so the locker room's got to be like, well, do we not have a chance to make it to the playoffs this year, or what's going on? So kind of an odd mixed message in that one. I felt the Jets. I know Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show, as he does every week, and he talked about, hey, we're just playing for pride at this point, whether you're 10-0 or you're 3-7, you got to play for pride. And I'm just like, there was no pride playing against the Cardinals. I mean, it was just bad. I mean, they were absolutely atrocious at tackling. I don't know. Do you remember the play where Rodgers, it was 4th down, it was in like the 3rd or 4th quarter, and they were on Arizona's 3-yard line, 4th down, and they were going for it. Of course, they were down big and going for it. And Rodgers ended up rolling to his left. Somebody came from behind him, ended up fumbling the ball, and Arizona got the ball and took over. Do you remember that play?
No, I don't. I was watching Red Zone, so maybe I saw it, but I don't recall it specifically. But go ahead.
Well, maybe you were – I'm glad you were spared from that atrocity. But I saw that one. And what I also saw, because it was one of the games I was watching, it was one of my games I had in the notebook. I had Arizona. I was just like, my gosh, why is Arizona dog the Jets? The Jets are horrible, not betting them. I like Arizona. I feel like Kyler Murray's quietly having one of his best years. His QBR is only 1 point below Lamar Jackson's. But when he is throwing darts, looks great. But that play where Aaron Rodgers lost the ball and he rolled to his left to throw the ball, the Jets, just to show you something about them, that was the 3rd time they had run that play, that exact same play, on that exact same drive. So it's not like Arizona didn't have a clue how to defend that after they had already seen it twice, that exact same drive. So I was just beside myself. I said, are you kidding me? And so I rewound the game and looked at it, and sure enough, they had run that exact same play 2 other times on the exact same drive. I'm just like, what in the world are you doing? And I just cannot believe this. It's just it is a mess all the way down. I don't even want to get into it. I mean, we already know the defense is just complete trash after they let Saleh go. It's they're giving up about 10 to 12 more points a game, without Saleh there. So more time than I thought we'd spend on that game, but there was clearly some things I needed to rid myself of. And thanks for letting me get those off my chest.
Okay. First of 2 4:05 games. There's one 4:25 game later.
Yep.
Seattle 4-5 at San Francisco 5-4. Seattle coming off the bye. San Francisco coming off a win over Tampa Bay 23-20.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the loser leave town match to me. I mean, it may be a little overly dramatic, but I mean, one of these teams has got to step up and say, hey, I want to go to the playoffs. It felt like that San Francisco, again, we talked about last week, Tampa Bay is a very frisky team, but San Francisco, Jake Moody missed 3 field goals. Deebo Samuels went after the long snapper, out on the sideline. Just very un-San Francisco-esque as far as that. Typical San Francisco weather, 60 degrees, chance of drizzle, northwest winds 6 miles per hour. I've got San Francisco. This is going to be a little high, I think, but I've got San Francisco. I've got them favored at 4.5. and I've got a total of 46.5.
Okay, you said 46.5, open 48, still 48. You actually undershot the number. You said 4.5. I said 7. Open 6, it's up to 6.5.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Okay. Look, it's that's a lot of points for a divisional game. We'll see. I mean, obviously Christian McCaffrey came back, got a bump. I mean, was over 100 yards. As you would expect Christian McCaffrey to do, just like he's, you know, the same thing. It's a little different this year. Not really against the spread, but just straight up this year. It really comes down to Brock Purdy. If he doesn't turn it over, they're 4-0. When he does, they're 1-4. So it's a big thing on his back. We'll see how Seattle's coming off a bye, correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so this will be a good one for us because we haven't seen Mike Macdonald, who we're both high on coming into the season. We'll see how. Again, this really gives us a chance to see. This is really the mark of a good coach coming off a bye. How do you prepare your team? Does your team play with a little extra juice coming off a bye? This will tell us a lot about him as well. So interested to see this game. Again, I'm not sure if this is a game that I'm going to play. There are definitely some other games I like better so far, but this is interesting. Does this one catch your eye at all?
Yeah, it does. Division game with a lot of points. Yeah, I mean, it's
Too many points. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. Well, I'll cheer you on as usual. We'll move on.
All right. Next one is the last of the 405 games. Atlanta 6-4 at Denver 5-5. Atlanta coming off the loss to New Orleans 20-17, and Denver the loss to Kansas City 16-14.
Well, I usually make a statement about the game itself, but it turned it into more of a question for you on this one is that which team do you buy out of these two teams?
Can I say neither?
Okay, you can.
Yeah, I think neither.
Say whatever you want.
I think I think they're both about the same. I know one's 6-4, the other's 5-5, but I think they're both, they can beat just about anybody and they can lose to just about anybody. They're in that territory. Somebody might go 10-7, somebody might go 7-10, that kind of thing. I'm just not sure which is going to be which. Atlanta is in an easier division. So maybe it'll be them who comes out of this a little bit ahead, but I think they're both very flawed teams. Still competitive, but flawed.
Yeah. Well, Atlanta's had the easiest schedule and has the easiest schedule the entire year of any team in the NFL. So you certainly have that. Even though they're 6-4 record, I don't think there's a dime worth of difference between the two. Detroit's or Denver's actually had a harder schedule. I've got this one. This game I've got again in Denver, 52 degrees, 3% chance of rain. Northwest wind is 3 miles per hour. So really nothing untoward there. I've got this one, Denver favored by 2.5, and I've got a total of 43.
Okay, you said 2.5, 43.
Right.
You said 43, open 43.5 up to 44. You said Denver 2.5. I said Denver 3, open Denver 1.5. It's up to 2.5.
So, all right. Well, that seems about right to me. World makes sense on that one. Look, yeah, any thoughts on that one? Do you have a side on that one, or are you just going to let the numbers guide you, or does your gut tell you anything without even looking at numbers? Does your gut tell anything about which one you like better? You're muted.
Sorry. Dogs are barking.
Right.
I think it seems about right. Denver being favored by slightly less than a field goal at home. Big question being whether Atlanta is ready for that altitude or not. But, these guys know how to do this nowadays to prepare for Denver. You're not necessarily going to be in the same cardiovascular shape as the Denver players who practice in it all the time, but you're going to get as close as you can before you start. So we'll see. But yeah, I think this is about where it should be, and I'll just be looking to see if anybody thinks it's an easy bet, and they're all over. It looks like everybody's all over Denver right now. So
yeah. Look, you and I have been doing this too long because we're thinking exact same track. I'm on the exact same team. You got a team that's a dome team. They're in the South. They're going to more of 50 degrees is not real cold, but I mean it's colder than what they're used to. And the most important thing, what your point you brought up, was an altitude game, and so that's what I wondered as well. We'll see if it has any effect on this game. Should be an interesting game. I'm actually interested in this game, and I'm looking forward to watching it. But I'm not sure the way I'm going to bet it right now.
Okay. Last of the 4 o'clock window, arguably the best game in the window, the whole day rather. Kansas City 9-0 at Buffalo 8-2. Kansas City coming off the win over Denver with that blocked field goal, and Buffalo coming off the win over Indianapolis 30-20.
Look, this is conceivably the battle for number one in the AFC. I know Kansas City's 9-0 and Buffalo's 8-2. If Buffalo wins this game, certainly takes the pressure off Kansas City. Probably gives them a little bit of a letdown game. The next game potentially, I'm not sure who they're playing, but could potentially lose as well. So you've got potentially that happening. But the other thing about this one, is this the AFC Championship preview? I mean, do you think this is who we end up with at the end of the day? Because one of these teams is going to be number one. The other one's probably going to be number two.
Yeah, it looks that way. Pittsburgh and Baltimore have something to say about that, but we'll see.
They will kind of feel like they're going to beat each other up in that division. Pittsburgh's got, I think this game is actually the very first of Pittsburgh's divisional games. I don't think they played a divisional game yet. And I think they've got to play all the divisional games now from here on out. And
hey, I'm gonna mute myself real quick and let you talk a bit. I got to hit the head real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, take off, man. Look, I think it should be an interesting game. This game here, again, Pittsburgh's schedule gets decidedly tougher, but let's focus on this game, Kansas City, Buffalo. Look, this game here, weather-wise, 48 degrees, our second game in the 40s here, 25% chance of rain, 10 miles per hour. Not exactly, it's kind of warm by Buffalo standards, but this time of year. But Kansas City plays in some out in the elements too. I don't think that'll be a big thing. The interesting thing about Kansas City this week is that Isaiah Pacheco, they've opened his 21-day window. Andy Reid's already come out and said he's not going to play this week. The other big thing, the 21-day that got open for Buffalo is linebacker Matt Milano. Matt Milano, he's one of the best off-ball linebackers in the entire NFL. Really good to see him back. Both of those people are going to be massive additions for their teams. I don't think either is going to play this week, but just really, really massive. The big issue comes to Buffalo this week is from a wide receiver, tight end standpoint. Keon Coleman's out. Tight end Dalton Kincaid didn't practice again today because of his knee. Wide receiver Amari Cooper, a little bit more optimistic, but he was limited in the walkthrough today, but more optimistic on him. But getting to the guess of this game, I've got Buffalo 2.5, and I've got a total of 45.
Okay, 45 was your guess on the total. It opened 44.5. It's up to 46. You said 2.5 Buffalo. I said 2. It opened 2.5. It's still 2.5. So you nailed it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. Patrick Mahomes is a dog, not a bad bet.
Not a bad bet, but you kind of understand why it is that way.
Sure.
When you look at this, Buffalo leads the NFL they've got a plus 13 turnover differential. But the one thing they've got to do, if they've got to force Kansas City to kick field goals, if they're going to stay in this game, I really believe that. It's interesting in this game. Patrick Mahomes, let's see, in this game, he has a 46 total QBR in the last 3 regular season games against Buffalo, and Buffalo is 3-0 in those games. So Buffalo's been, I think a lot of times about Kansas City when I think about, Joe Burrow typically gives him his game, and Joe Burrows, who is kind of the Mahomes, potentially the Mahomes killer on that. But the past 3 games, Buffalo has been that nemesis for Kansas City and for Patrick Mahomes. But, again, Kansas City just grinds you to death. They are number 1 in NFL in 10-play drives. They rise to the moment on 3rd down, 4th down. There's nobody in the league that's better than them. The one thing concerning about Kansas City, if they're not going to make it this year, if they lose a game, whether it's now or in the playoffs, you kind of feel like it's going to be because their left tackle situation. Mahomes has been sacked a surprising 20 times in the first 9 games. That's more sacks than he's been sacked in any 9 games of the first 9 games of any season that he's played. So, again, that's really a problem spot for them. We'll see. I don't know if Buffalo can make them pay for that on that, but a team who's got, like Denver, who's got that incredible ability to rush, that's going to be a tough one for Kansas City. I don't know if Buffalo can do that. There's a lot to get through in playing this Kansas City team. They are just professionals, and it's like, when Kansas City loses at this point, it's not because they're going to get beat. It's just because they've kind of run out of time. It seems like, because Kansas City is always in these games. In the fourth quarter, their defense just seems to rise the occasion. Whenever they're trailing, the defense just shuts the other team down, doesn't give any points. What are your thoughts on this game?
Simply that I like Mahomes as a dog in general. I'm not really a big Andy Reid off or buy Patrick Mahomes as a dog guy, but people are on Buffalo. I think if it's short of a 3-point spread, looks like they're going to keep getting bets, and I think I'll be on Kansas City, and I'll feel pretty comfortable about that.
Be hard not to.
Pardon?
I said it'd be hard not to.
Right. I mean, Kansas City's also coming off a game where they almost lost to Denver. If Denver had been able to block for that field goal, and that leaves a little bit of a bad taste in people's mouths about Kansas City. Well, they should have a loss already, so why wouldn't they get this loss? I like that as well. You can have a bit of an egg on 1 week and come back the next and look a lot better. So we'll see. But I think I definitely like Kansas City in this matchup.
Yeah, totally understand. Look, going back to I'm glad you brought that up about that field goal, because that blocked field goal at the end, because some people are like, oh my gosh, Kansas City got lucky again. But if you go back and you look at that that field goal, that was being set up the entire game. On special teams, if you're on defense, you're looking for somebody, they kind of call that person the fish. You look for the weak link on that special teams. And that weak link was a backup center for Kansas City or for Denver. His number 54, and his name is Alex. I can't remember his name completely, but again, he was not. They had looked at him the entire game, and they scored first touchdowns the first 2 times, and you saw him getting sized up. They saw him want the first touchdown, the extra point. They didn't rush him. They just were trying to size things up. The next touchdown, they rushed him a little bit, and he was flat on his back. And he was the only one on Denver's offensive line. Essentially, he was kind of their left tackle on that special teams unit. He's flat on his back. The next one was a missed extra point. Again, flat on his back. They rushed him, and they're like, "This is the guy that we can go after." And that's exactly who they double teamed him and just went right through him, and they blocked that kick right after that. So I mean, that's just superior coaching by Kansas City. It just feels like they're playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers.
Can't disagree. Okay, next game is Sunday night. Cincinnati 4-6 at the LA Chargers 6-3, with Cincinnati coming off a loss to Baltimore 35-34, and the Chargers coming off a win over Tennessee 27-17.
Look, this may not be the teams with one of the two teams with the best records. If we've got three other teams that have got 7-2, 7-3 records, or in Kansas City spot 9-0 and Buffalo 8-2. But this game here is I'm excited about as anything. Cincinnati feel like they're getting better. Chargers at 6-3. I kind of feel like Cincinnati would have the 6-3 record. They don't. Backs are really good up against the wall. I mean, this is drama at its highest. Should be just a really good game. Excited about this one's in a dome, so no weather. I've got the Chargers. Sounds like a give up to me, but I got the Chargers at 3, and I've got a total at 43.
Okay, you said 43, and the total opened 45. It's up to 48. Chargers, you said 3 for the Chargers. I said 3.5. It opened 2.5. It's down to 1.5. So that's Cincinnati's another team like the Jets that I find is getting more credit than I think they maybe deserve in the lines. I honestly, the Chargers are 6-3. I know record isn't everything. In Cincinnati, we know they're talented, but they're 4-6, and it's kind of interesting that they're getting less than 3 points on the road against a better team. But that's my analysis.
Yeah, certainly better team by record for certain. But I feel like the Chargers are not getting any respect. Chargers they're holding opponents to less than 2 touchdowns a game.
Yeah,
their defense. I feel like the total's disrespectful in this game at 48. I'm shocked that it's going up that much. Really, I think this is going to be a well of a game. I'm excited to watch this. From an injury standpoint, T. Higgins is probably going to be back this game. He was limited in practice. He's had that quadriceps injury. Looks like he'll be back. But again, this defense for the Chargers, they've had 5+ sacks in 3 straight games. With this offensive line of Cincinnati, don't you think they're going to have 5+ sacks again versus Joe Burrow?
Yeah, I think so. You're right about their defense. It's ridiculous. They're so below the radar. I think it's because it's out in LA and whatnot, and their defense is good.
They haven't been good. They've been this team that's been soft, labeled as all that. And now they've got this toughness. Jesse Minder's come there. He's from that Baltimore coaching tree, kind of been out there. And, he's brought this toughness to the team. It was essentially the same players, and now they're just tough. And, they run the ball. And this is what Harbaugh does. He instills that discipline in that team. And this team, all of a sudden, they start believing. Everybody buys in. Really excited about this Chargers team and what they're going to do. Look, man, I love me some Joe Burrow, but what a game this is going to be. I can't wait to watch it. I'm not going to miss a minute. I may even watch commercials on this game. So looking forward to it.
Okay. Last game is Monday night. Houston 6-4 at Dallas 3-6. Houston off the loss to Detroit 26-23. And Dallas coming off a loss to Philadelphia 34-6.
Yeah, look, this kind of feels like to me kind of a get-right game for Houston, right? Dallas is just kind of a shambles. I take no pleasure. And again, it was one of my my strongest preseason prognostications. I said Dallas was going to have a losing record, and I said, and by Thanksgiving, they would be out of the playoff race. And lo and behold, here they are. They're just an absolute disaster. It was pretty easy to see. Jerry just did nothing to save this team. And it's what he does. He overpays for stuff, just like how he did with even at the trade deadline when he probably should have been in sellers. He goes acquire Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver from Carolina, and gives up a fourth for him, where Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, the Jets and the Kansas City Chiefs both got 5th round picks for them. So I mean, just kind of what Jerry does. It's almost like he takes pride in overpaying for teams or paying for that. So just a weird deal in Dallas. I don't understand them. It's a disaster. Again, it feels very much like Al Davis-esque when he got older. He became kind of rigid and just ran the Raiders team into the ground. I feel like Jerry is just white knuckling the steering wheel, driving the Cowboys off a cliff and just going, whee all the way as he goes, right? I don't know what's going on, but it feels that way to me. Look, obviously the big news, Dak Prescott having season-ending surgery. He's done for the year. Houston gets back Nico Collins this week. Be interested to see how C.J. Stroud does with him. Look, I'll be real honest. I've had I was really excited about Bobby Slowick last year, offensive coordinator for Houston. Felt like he did a really good job this year. Felt like it's just the opposite, that he's not calling good games. Again, not putting – I felt like he lost the game as much as Detroit won it. In the second half, he kept calling running plays when they're not running the ball, putting them in long second and third downs. If he just let him if he ran it on just first down, it's like he put C.J. Stroud in long second and third and long. They just weren't running the ball. And, I'm just not impressed with him. And I think that he's lost some his stock's probably kind of gone down. Interesting enough, again, Dallas being the home team, Dallas is the first team in NFL history to trail by 20 or more points in 5 straight home games. Will it be 6 in a row? I don't know. But to me, they just need to tear it down. I'm going to take Houston. I put them at 2.5. I'm probably low, and I've got a total of 39.
Okay, total, you said 39, open 42.5 down to 42. You said Houston minus 2.5. I said Houston minus 3.5. It opened minus 7, and it's up to minus 7.5.
It's a lot of points, but I'm not surprised. I mean, this Dallas team's a mess. You just take your life in your own hands. I know it was one of the underdogs, one of the very few underdogs you lost this past weekend in the Philadelphia-Dallas game. But Dallas is a mess. Like I said, I think it's not only a roster problem, it's a culture problem. You feel like you've got Micah Parsons saying something just idiotic every week. And it's a mess. But it really is a mess starting at the top. I don't see it. I'm just not a big fan of this team, and you could see this one coming a mile away. I'd say it's one of my biggest prognostications at the start of the year, but certainly not a big leap for anybody who was really following this team and the roster moves they didn't make in the offseason. But Matt, I think that's it for us tonight.
Good stuff. Well, looking forward to this week. Obviously, that Kansas City Buffalo game is going to be just a whale of a game. And then you're right, Sunday night with LA and Cincinnati. I mean, that's Herbert Burrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. So a lot of money to be made, I think.
Yeah, those are all must-watch games. It's just going to be an absolute blast. Should be. So, really excited about this week.
Sweet. Well, any final thoughts before take off until Saturday morning.
Yeah, Smooth Andy. Any thoughts on this week? Do you, in general, what do you think about the card we have this week?
I haven't really looked hard at the the betting splits or anything like that yet, so I'm not really sure where I'm going to be on this. But I can usually see some bets that I can see coming a mile away. I'm really looking forward to those big three games. I think that's gonna be good. We're gonna have a Thursday night game that's a really good one with Washington and Philadelphia, and then a 1 o'clock game that's Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and then we'll have a late 4 o'clock game with Kansas City Buffalo. It's gonna be a good Sunday.
Yeah, look,
And
I'm with you 100%. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Same thing. I'll take it a step further. Look, I think there's a lot about each game that I'm really looking forward to watching and understanding. I'm particularly interested in the big three games like you, but I'll call it big 3+1 because I'll add in the Cincinnati and the Chargers for Sunday night. To me, that's just as exciting and much watch game for me for a lot of reasons. But again, I'm excited about this week. It doesn't have the breadth of games that I'm going to play. I don't see this as like I'm going to play the majority of these games, but the games I like that I can see already, I like a lot, and I'm probably going to hammer. So anyway, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for spending your Wednesday night with us. We're a little bit late this week. Had some travel with a day job that's prevented me from doing it last night. Thanks for your flexibility, but we always appreciate you guys tuning in and making time for us. Hope you learned a lot. We certainly did. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, follow Smooth Andy at @SmoothAndy5 on Twitter, on X rather. Follow me at Uncle Phil's Locks and across all platforms. Again, please go to YouTube, subscribe and like as well. It really helps as well. So anyway, guys, hey, again, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. We're going to see you. I'll probably drop some. I know I'm going to drop a play tomorrow night. So look for that on X. And then certainly watch us on Lock and Live as we do our best bets on Saturday morning for college and Sunday morning again for NFL. Guys, for Matt, who hosts the show, for Smooth Andy, who's the football quant and the underdog king, I'm Uncle Phil. Thanks for tuning in. As always, guys, let's have a week. As always, guys, let's roll.
Soundstripe.